Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lindsay Mathyssen. I am the Member of Parliament for London Fanshawe. I am so excited to have you all here today joining us at Goodwill Industries and to welcome our leader, Jagmeet Singh, the Member of Parliament for Burnaby South. Sorry. I'm just so excited. I know that he's making his way through Southwestern Ontario, talking about better jobs, good jobs, and that is so important, of course, for people across Canada, but here in London as well. I'm overwhelmed. I'm excited to introduce Jagmeet Singh, and I will hand this over to him. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, and thanks for all the work you do here in London. I know that London Fanshawe and London as a community is better off because of New Democrats fighting for people. Thank you to everyone joining us today, and thank you to the workers behind me. Today, we want to talk about our jobs plan. We know that in this pandemic, many people lost their jobs, and it's been incredibly difficult. People lost their jobs and are wondering what's going to happen in the future. We have an opportunity, despite how difficult this pandemic has been, despite how hard it's been on workers, we have an opportunity if we make the right choices. In the recovery, we can create jobs. And our jobs plan starts first and foremost with improving the conditions of work. We can't have a New Democratic job plan without talking about conditions of work. That means making sure people have legislated paid sick leave at the federal level, making sure that we don't just talk about essential workers being important, we make sure that these workers are important by actually protecting them and giving them the tools they need to live their best lives and to do their best work. And so while Justin Trudeau's often talked a lot about this, he hasn't actually delivered on real concrete improvements. We want to see an increase in minimum wage at the federal level to show leadership. We want to make sure workers are able to work with dignity and respect. Secondly, we want to build in Canada. We want to build infrastructure. We want to build public transit. We want to build to create jobs. Building will make our communities better, more livable, and also create jobs and opportunities. And finally, when we're building that infrastructure, when we're building that public transit, we want to use Canadian products. We want to use Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum. We want to make sure that we are using Canadian-made products when we are building and expanding. We also want to make sure that we are producing important things in Canada. In this pandemic, many people were so shocked to learn that we did not have the ability to produce personal protective equipment here in Canada. That was a serious problem. So what we're proposing is we need to produce in Canada the PPE. We need to make medication and vaccines in our country. These are also vital parts of our plan. And finally, we know that in this pandemic, people saw horrible things happen in long-term care. We want to make sure that never happens again. And we know one of the ways to ensure that our loved ones are cared for is to invest in long-term care. We want to get profit out of long-term care, but we want to expand it, invest in it, be better partners at the federal level with dollars invested specifically in caring for our loved ones. And that means making sure we know without a doubt that better conditions of work in long-term care directly result in better care for our loved ones. So we want to improve the conditions of work for long-term care workers, for PSWs. We want to make sure that we are investing in childcare in a meaningful and bold way. We know that women were amongst the hardest impacted by the pandemic. And to fix that, we need to make sure that there is affordable universal childcare across this country. I'm really excited that we're making this announcement today at Goodwill. This is a really special place. This is where we made our first announcement last election. And it's a place that speaks directly to the idea of finding good work for people. And so I'm really honored to lay out our jobs plan, a plan that will create 1 million jobs and really importantly, improve the quality of work and protect workers. That to us is so important. Donc, merci infiniment d'être ici. Aujourd'hui, on veut parler de notre plan pour les emplois, plus d'emplois, une meilleure qualité de conditions de travail pour les travailleurs. Et donc, on commence dans notre plan avec 4 éléments. Le premier élément, c'est vraiment ça, d'améliorer les conditions de travail, meilleures conditions de travail pour les travailleurs et travailleuses. Deuxièmement, on veut bâtir l'infrastructure, le transport en commun, et c'est une façon de créer des emplois locaux, dans les communautés. Aussi, quand on bâtit cette infrastructure, on doit utiliser les produits canadiens. Ça, c'est aussi essentiel. Les produits canadiens comme l'acier canadien, comme l'aluminium canadien, c'est important d'utiliser les produits canadiens pour créer plus d'emplois. Et aussi, finalement, on sait que dans cette pandémie, les femmes étaient frappées fort par la pandémie. On doit mieux investir dans les services de garde. On sait qu'au Québec, on a déjà un système de garderie, mais si on peut améliorer ce service de garde avec plus de financement du niveau fédéral, ça va aider. On va aussi s'assurer qu'on investit dans nos soins de longue durée. C'est essentiel de reconnaître l'impact de la pandémie sur les soins de longue durée et on avait toujours une crise dans les soins de longue durée et c'était exposé par la pandémie. On va régler ça. Donc, merci infiniment. C'est notre plan pour plus des emplois, meilleures conditions de travail et on est fiers de ce qu'on peut faire ensemble dans les prochains mois. Merci encore. I'm ready for any questions that you might have. Thank you so much. And we'll take your next questions. Passing the mic now to Melanie Richer, who will manage the next portion of this announcement. Thank you.
Merci, Jagmeet. So we're going to start with questions on the floor. Would you like a question, the CTV?
So I want to form a new Democrat government. And so my plan is to become the prime minister of this country because we have seen in this pandemic, more new Democrats have delivered more help for people. We saw directly that even though we were the fourth party, we were able to deliver more help to more people. And so to me, that shows really clearly how important it is for us to form government. So I want to make sure that all of Canada is a priority. But in London, we've got great roots. Lindsay Mathyssen has done an incredible job showing folks what you get with a new Democrat. The provincial NDP has shown you get fighters who are willing to fight for you. And so we are excited about what that means in terms of making sure people have more support. People have someone that's willing to fight for them, someone that's going to stand up for them in Ottawa. So absolutely, London is important. It's also a place I spent a lot of time. I went to Western, spent 5 years of my life here, and I really got to love the community. And I think it's so important that London has a representation. It deserves people who are willing to fight for them. In this past 18 months of the pandemic, Conservatives weren't able to point to a single victory that they fought and won for people. New Democrats can show that we have been there and we have fought and won more help to more people. And we can show that that's what we'll continue to do for people.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yes, hello, we can hear you.
Okay, hi. Okay, I was not hearing. Good to see you in London, Jagmeet. My question is definitely is very good that better jobs, more jobs, and Canadian needs job. So at present, we know that most of the spousal immigration applications and manufacturing jobs, they are being processed in China. So why are we giving Canadian jobs to China for processing spousal immigration applications, which are Canadian jobs? Your comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. I think it is absolutely wrong that particularly that type of work, that's Canadian work, that is an application process, immigration application to come to Canada. That should be work that's happening in Canada. That should be a Canadian, that should be in fact a public job done by our public service, without a doubt. It is wrong that that's being outsourced. That is not the right thing to do. That's sensitive information. That's important information. It should remain in Canada. Canadians should be doing that job. I would go even further and say that should be public service jobs who should be trusted with that type of privacy and that type of information. So absolutely, we need to make sure that jobs remain in Canada. We've seen a lot of companies that have taken public help and have sent jobs overseas. That's absolutely wrong as well. And we would crack down on that. We do not believe any company should take public money and then offshore their jobs, take them out of Canada. So we believe absolutely in making sure jobs remain in Canada, public services remain public and are done by people in our country who are working in the capacity with the safety and security to be able to take that personal information. So I agree very strongly with that.
Can I ask follow-up? Yes. Jagmeet, there is an issue recently going on of a contract marriage fraud. So there are 3,600 Punjabi youth in Punjab who have been duped of $25 million in last 5 years. Those girls, they came to Canada on a visa, study visa, and in terms of the contract marriage fraud. So all the applications are with the Indian External Affairs Ministry also. If tomorrow you will be the Prime Minister, how will you clean this mess in the immigration system where contract marriage is a everyday scene we have seen in the community? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. There have been a lot of problems in our immigration system. We've known for a long time there's been backlogs where families have not been able to be reunified. We know that there's been a lot of delays in spousal reunification. We need to make sure we've got an immigration system that works, that's transparent, that's clear. Part of the problem is having adequate staffing so that the cases can be dealt with in a meaningful way and in a timely way. We've got incredible workers, incredible public servants who work hard, but they're understaffed and are unable to deal with the backlog and the overwhelming number of cases. There also has to be a streamlined approach. And when it comes to fraud, we obviously want to do everything possible to stop any case, any form of fraud, whether it's in the immigration system or any other part of our Canadian landscape. We want to make sure that there isn't anyone abusing the system. And so we should always be vigilant about ending any sort of practice like that.
So we will go back to the questions on the Zoom. I see Chris Reynolds has a question. Chris Reynolds with the Canadian Press, go ahead.
Thanks very much for taking our questions, Mr. Singh. I was looking at a parliamentary budget officer report this morning on a one-time wealth tax for folks who have over 10 million and over $20 million, different tax rates for those, two different thresholds. And the PBO estimates that up to $60 billion in revenue can be generated over 5 years by this one-time wealth tax, and that's because the tax would be paid in installments over 5 years. Between 44 billion and 60 billion is the estimate, since there are some rough calculations involved. So I'm wondering how this estimation, this projection from the parliamentary budget officer on a one-time wealth tax lines up with your plans to cover some possible spending deficits with a wealth tax. Is this something you'd consider as a result, this one-time wealth tax?
Thanks for the question. We've proposed a permanent tax on the ultra-rich. So we don't believe in a one-time tax. We believe that the ultra-wealthy should always be paying their fair share. And we know that there are a lot of loopholes that mean that the ultra-rich don't pay their fair share at all. So while I think it's proof that there is significant revenue available if we tax the ultra-rich, I don't at all believe in a one-time. I believe in an ongoing, ensuring ongoing that the ultra-rich pay their fair share. We want to also put in place a pandemic profiteering tax. And that would be specific to the pandemic, that in this time, there's been companies that have made record profits and they should pay their fair share. We also know that offshore tax havens have meant that a lot of companies are making money in Canada, taking that money offshore and not paying their fair share. All this has happened because liberals and conservatives had let them do this. And right now, we also know that there are significant loopholes that allow the ultra rich not to pay their fair share. We also know that companies like Amazon, Netflix, and Google, these web giants, make money off the backs of Canadians who pay their fair share, and they don't pay their fair share. They, in fact, pay virtually no taxes in Canada. That cannot be allowed to continue. If you make money in Canada, if you make money off of Canadians, you have to pay your fair share. Liberals and Conservatives have let these international foreign companies get away with not doing that. I would put an end to that. That would be a significant increase in revenue, and we would use that revenue to invest in people.
Sorry, there we are. Thank you for that. Second question, I understand that the NDP's jobs blueprint focuses heavily on past promises, as well as some of the newer pledges. You know, that we have like a pledge for better supports for workers through national pharmacare, 10 days of paid sick leave, higher minimum wages. These are things that, as I understand, you and your party are calling for. I'm just wondering if you have any concerns about whether sort of rehashing 2019 promises is something that could work to your disadvantage rather than having even newer pledges, or if these are just as important now as they were 2 years ago.
Well, this pandemic has shown us a lot of the things that we had asked for are in fact more important than ever. In this pandemic, people lost their jobs, they lost their benefits, and even more Canadians couldn't afford to take medication that they need to stay healthy. Even more Canadians lost their dental care coverage. So more than ever, making sure everyone in our country has access to medication when they need it, and making sure people can access dental care when they need it, that is in fact become more important than ever. So what we campaigned on in 2019, I'm not surprised, is now actually even more important. And so that's why we are committed to making sure this happens. While the Liberals often talk about one thing, they do things for show and they don't deliver, we believe in getting things done. We, for example, when it comes to pharmacare, the Liberal government, Justin Trudeau, campaigned on pharmacare, brought it up in the throne speech, said it was important to them. And we said, all right, let's get it done. We put forward legislation to actually move it forward, to actually bring about pharmacare for all, medication coverage for all. And when we brought that legislation forward, when the Liberals had a chance to actually do something about it, instead of just talk about it, they voted against pharmacare, clearly showing they're all for show. They're not interested in actually getting the work done. The big difference between us and Liberals, we're not here for show, we're here to get the work done. In the pandemic, we've shown that. We got more help to more people. And in the recovery, we want to do that. Moving forward, we want to make sure the recovery is focused on what people need and the supports they need so they can move forward.
Okay, we'll take any other questions that we have on Zoom. So a reminder to journalists and media joining us to please use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. If you have a question, we'll just take a moment to see if there are any other further questions. There don't seem to be any more questions on Zoom, so we'll go back to the room in case there are questions there. I don't think there are any more questions.
And to all of the workers here, the provincial NDP for their hard work, and thank you to all the journalists and the media for being here. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.